I see that it's 7 o'clock, so I think we'll go ahead and get this started. Welcome and good evening. My name is Amber Kowach, and I am the curriculum director for MAPS. But tonight I'll be serving as the moderator for this event. In a few moments, Superintendent Ron Stoneman is going to be presenting the scope of our bond project, but I'd like to ask that if there are any questions during the presentation, that you please add those to the chat. We'll have an opportunity for some Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please don't hesitate to put any of your questions or wonderings into our chat. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Stoneman.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening and kind of get a glimpse and information related to our vision and our bond proposal and all that's entailed with that. So let's get started. Ken, can you get us started with our first slide? Again, welcome. And we have a Chippewa edge to explain to you and work through. As you see, MAPS 2020 now has an inlay of a 1, and that's kind of reflecting our board decision to delay this bond proposal from last year to this year. So we're really excited to get this ignited and start moving forward. Next slide, please. We're here today. I'd like to review the project and understand the impact of the bond proposal, both financially and kind of, what it means to the community and what kind of commitment this is and how it'll impact the school and the district and the community. And of course, the district needs your voice. And again, I appreciate you being here, and I hope you have some questions or some insight that you might be able to provide. Next slide, please. A little bit of history here. Back in 2016, the district was contracted with one individual person, and that person conducted over 120 interviews, both internal stakeholders and external stakeholders, parents and business owners, teachers, administration. And we're really looking to get an idea of what perspective and perception that the community had with the district, and what shortcomings that the district has had, and but what strengths that the community and the internal group felt that the district had. Very important information, and we continue to utilize that information as we've moved forward. In 2017, we brought on Chrisman Construction and also Tower Pinkster, and they helped us do a very involved assessment of our facilities, and we established the current and future needs of our facilities during that process. Real pleasure working with both of those groups, and they've really helped us a lot to understand our facility needs. And 18 and 19, we considered the feedback that we've gotten along the way, especially in 2016, applying the facility assessment, getting a third party to do a enrollment projection for us. That is part of the bond work and going to the state treasury. And we're really focused on doing projects that scaled our facilities. And a plan was developed to outline the needs of our district over the next 20 years. In 2021, like I said, although the bond proposal was delayed to the pandemic, our vision and future has not changed. The scope of the project has not changed, and it delivers properly scaled facilities, educational quality environments, and serves the needs of all students and teachers in our districts. Next slide, please. This is a little bit of understanding the history of our buildings. Our youngest learners are taught at Jefferson Elementary. Right now, that is grades kindergarten through second. It's a 1954 elementary building. Based on enrollment and cost projections, modernizing this facility has an extreme high price tag for the how old and the condition of the facility. Very challenging. Looking at Madison Elementary, it was built in 1964. This was the last time the community voted to approve a bond investing in elementary facilities. So it's 57 years ago, which I'd like to say is not that old, seeming my 57th birthday was like yesterday, but it's old for a facility. In 1967, a well-constructed new high school was built, and now it serves as Kennedy Elementaries for grades 3 through 5, and are learning in space that are designated for high school students. So the building has not been retrofitted for elementary use, and the facility is basically as is structurally wise since it was used as a high school. Of course, over the years, we've been able to put a new roof on it when it needed and improve the heating systems in the building and keep ahead of those needs over the years. And we've used mechanisms of energy saving bonds where the savings and energy, those savings were utilized to pay for some of the needed capital projects in the building. So that those projects have served the district extremely well. 22 years ago, 1999, the Manistee Middle High School facility was built. It was originally built for 9 through 12 grades, but now we've been able to consolidate, and that building is a true middle school, high school with grades 6 through 12. It requires some renovation to meet the needs of the younger students in that building. And there's some other projects that we have in mind for this building that are related to the bond. So that kind of gives you a layout of the 4 facilities that we currently utilize. And it has an idea when they were established and how long we've been using them. Next slide, please. Project impact for our students. We're really looking at providing our youngest learners safe and accessible and efficient classrooms. For our teachers, we want to have an environment, provide them an environment and tools to impact all student success. Really important. We also investing in a sustainable education foundation for the future of our community. And we will talk about the impact of the community in a few slides down the way. Next page, please. This is lays out the work, the vision of the work on our project and our proposal. And starting over on the left at the middle school, high school site, we have here secure entry and academic wing update, construction of a dedicated middle school gym. We're getting stressed on that space for a physical education class and extracurricular activities. We're getting a little stressed on space. The doors and hardware updates for the building are 20 years of use. We have a replacement for those, and partial roof replacement, and some track storage. So let's look at that a little bit more individually. The light blue area, some of this work we've completed. We have put new signage into the parking lot area that is light blue, and we have resurfaced or resealed that asphalt. And the signage has all allowed us to split the buses up to a new location and streamline the drop-off area for parents and students, and separating the congestion a bit. So that's been done and completed, where that's been successful. If you've been in the building recently, or if you recall you walking into the building, you used to be able to walk straight forward into the commons area through the entryway. The Board of Education decided to take on a project to better secure that building last year. So the project was completed. We replaced all of the front doors on the entryway. and created a secure entry, which put a hole in the wall in the vestibule area that requires you to go directly to the office upon entry to the building. And you get registered and a pass, and then you'll be buzzed into the commons area from that point. So that's been completed. Also in that project, if you've been in that building, on each side of the library or media center is sets of doors that go into the academic area. We've replaced those doors, and 4 on each side. And they're much sturdier doors, replace the hardware, and a release system on those doors that will shut the doors in case of emergency, and have a secure academic wing. But we are look at the diagram at, we're looking at a middle school gym that would be behind the current gym, adjacent to that. And it scaled a little bit smaller for middle school use. And if you're familiar with the drop off in that back of the building, that allows that gym to be 2-story. And what we would have is locker rooms for middle school underneath the gym, and some extra storage area. We have our expensive pits for pole vaulting and high jumping. That'd be a great storage area for those items to keep them secure and warm, and for their longevity and use into the future. Also, on the light yellow, the faded yellow area would be the first section of roof that we would be replacing. It's mainly over the academic wing, and that would allow that to be replaced, and would get us a good start on roof replacement on that facility. Okay, looking at Jefferson property. The next diagram, the 1954 elementary, we're looking at taking that building down. And we initially had a kind of a blank slate for that property, and described as a green space with opportunities for athletic fields or green space for the neighborhood. Just as we were having those discussions, the idea of housing came to us, and we thought we would get a neighborhood committee together. So there is a Jefferson Neighborhood Committee, and administration and board are working together with the committee to get ideas for the property. There were some drawings related to a scope for a park area. But we also supported the city looking at some development and the needs of the community, the housing needs of the community. We also had the property surveyed by Spicer, and we're looking at what possibilities may exist for that space for development. Obviously, the district's not a developer, so we would be selling that property for that use. But that committee wants to make sure the integrity of that neighborhood is sustained, and they're very involved with the ideas on how that might be broken up and what type of housing would be allowed or envisioned to be there. There are possibilities of deed restriction, and size of lots could help support that vision of the neighborhood committee. And so we will be working with them this week to update them on the survey and possibilities for that property. Moving on to Kennedy Elementary, which is the 67 high school. When this building, the bond passed in 67 and the building was built, it was an excellent building that was put together, block and steel, and it still has use as a building and for the community and for the district. So we're looking at a renovation project for this building. We envision hosting pre-kindergarten through 5th grade and being the sole elementary building of the district. But it does need a complete renovation to accomplish that. Renovating the building saves a great deal of money, and it will meet the needs of our elementary students far into the future. So we're obviously we'd need to take down the 1927 building that's abandoned next door. That is a priority for the board. And we'll be able to add a bus loop and a parking loop, or a parent drop-off loop, and staff and guest parking areas to the building. It would require a addition that would have a cafeteria and kitchen on the main floor, and that will be able to serve all the students. We would be able to utilize Sands Park for the kids and the playground, existing playground, and we would have an additional playground closer to the building for our smallest students to utilize. So that is, we're obviously looking at safety and security in this building. So secure wings and academic wings and secure entry systems. Also HVA system for quality fresh air and filtration systems in the building for safety would be something that would be involved in this project. Moving on to Madison. Madison is south of town, Violet Township. Currently, that building is hosting MGLVA, which is a cyber academy. Their offices are there. We authorized that academy. It's a virtual school with over 3,000 students in it. And also in that building is a GSRP program, which is a federally funded preschool program. And we also have a tuition-based program, preschool program in that building. And the ISD utilizes some space, and so does Central Wellness for their autistic program. In the scope of work, the building needs a new roof and new mechanical system update, heater and boiler and such. And central office would be moving out of Kennedy Elementary to make space for students and classrooms, and that we would retrofit some classrooms in Madison to host central office. All right, and moving on. Financial impact of the vision. Next page. Right, the current bond drops off in 9 years. So the 1999 bond will be paid for in 2029. And the 2017 this page is really related to having an understanding on what our 4 facilities that we currently have would cost us, the district, moving forward. And it's a very expensive situation. So moving forward with all 4 buildings over 10 years exceeds $48 million of facility needs. All 4 buildings moving forward in 20 years exceeds $63 million. So the vision, the idea of consolidating elementary infrastructure as outlined in our scope would save estimated $21 million over those 20 years. Based on projected maintenance and capital needs of the existing buildings. As you know, construction costs grow each year that we wait, and we experienced a little of that waiting that 1 year. Our aging facilities needs are, the needs are quickly outpacing our financial abilities and our budget to manage the large capital projects that are involved. And also 60 years ago was the last time the Manistee community voted to approve a bond investing in elementary education. So it's been a while for this kind of bond focused on those grade levels. All right, next slide. All right, so we have some financial information on this page. The total bond is just under 31 million at 30,855,000. This would call for an increase of 2.65 mils That would take the existing debt and the 2.65 mils to a total of 4.7 mils. The table of numbers there represents your home's fair market value, and the black numbers column would be a yearly tax increase according to your fair market value, and the green column represents a monthly cost. Going down to the graph below, I know that the years are hard to see, but it starts at 1999. And the community voted in 1999 for 4 mil to construct the high school, now middle school, high school. And you can see how that debt has performed over the years. The district has refinanced that debt at least 3 times. And the last time, last year, with only 9 years remaining on the term, the district refinanced and was able to save $800,000 on this debt. So that it's been a valuable process for refinancing. And as that debt is been paid off, it is less mills are needed to collect to pay that debt. And we're anticipating for next year, this tax year, that mill collection will be 2.05 mils. Where the green line and the blue line meet, we're just under 5 mils at 4.7. That represents paying off the bond or having both bonds. And as we progress, when the blue line ends, that's 2029 as the bond is paid off. And then the green line continues with the remaining bond. And we anticipate that bond performing very similarly to the 1999 bond, where opportunity of increase in property values allows us to collect less mills to pay off the debt. And as the debt gets paid off, we will have to collect less mills to pay that. I had a great question the other day that I found out the answer to as certain. As the 1999 bond drops off, why isn't there a larger decrease in the amount collected? And I found out that the rationale for that is that at that point, the district will be able to collect and pay down the new bond more quickly. It's not a 30-year term, but a 25-year term. So that we'll be able to pay down that debt in 25 years. So if you look at the top of this page, says where the blue square and the green square are, you can see the difference in the terms of 25 and 30 years. So that was a good thing to have. Next page, please. What will it cost? Just pictures just to let you know that we have a calculator at our website, help calculating your tax impact. So you'll be able to put your assessed value in and make a determination on how that will impact you personally. So you'll be able to find that calculator on our website. Let's take a look at the next page. This just recognize education in our community, but we have a little student there talking about that it's been 60 years since a bond has been approved related to elementary needs. Next slide. I like this information. It really helps us put a perspective to our ask and our current situation related to mills. The top graph represents the county districts and Bear Lake, K&D. We see ourselves, Manistee, at collecting 2.05 currently, and Onekama. It has enrollment. It shows that we're nearly, for several of the districts, we're over 3 times, and for K&D, we are almost 3 times the size of enrollment. So we are feeling that this is a really good time and a comparison for us to bring this project and vision to our community. Again, at 4.7 mils, that represents that we're in the neighborhood of our neighbors, and represents the investment that our neighbors are making in their districts and their community, and that it's time for us to do the same. Looking at the graph down below, we have some neighboring districts, and we use these districts in comparison that we're competing with school of choice. We're competing for development and industry and businesses. And these are the communities that represent some of our challenges for competition. As you see, Benzie, very similar in size, recently passed a bond issue. And Ludington recently passed a $100 million bond issue, and they have quite large projects going on. We see Mason County Central continuing to invest and improve their facilities. And Cadillac has recently passed a substantial facility project bond. And we use Spring Lake. We do a lot of comparisons to Spring Lake. They are an exemplary example. They represent what would be considered as a successful community, and it shows in their investment in or reflects in their investment in their school facilities with 7 mills. And we also tend to compare ourselves similarly with Fremont. So that find this information very interesting, and that at 4.7 mils, we're in a very reasonable position compared to our like districts around us, and some exemplaries. So take a last look at that slide. Thank you. And I touched on this also. 1996, school districts were placed in a position to consider marketability. This 1996 represents school of choice. And what an impactful act this has been for districts, as declining enrollments and being funded per student. The competition for students in our county and in our area is something to consider. It's about the same time, 1993, that Proposal A passed also, and that represents a different funding model for public schools, less pressure on property taxes for daily operation budgets, and put more on sales tax. The MAP's vision positions our district to capture and retain families and seeking quality educational resources. Again, keeping up with our neighbors is an important factor related to the stability of our community. It is a factor. All right, next page, please. What is the plan B? Without the bond, the district would need to make up shortfalls. So we have a great deal of capital projects that are before us related to facilities, and to meet the needs of our students is going to be a priority, and that priority is going to accelerate as our buildings get to critical positions. So delaying, this, we're concerned about safety measures that we need to have in the building, and air quality is related to that. Consider building consolidation without properly scaled facilities. So as our enrollment continues to decline over the next few years, as predicted, we will have to continue to right size our districts related to facility. And we have not, retrofitted our facility for younger students. So it's going to be an expensive adventure for the district. And determining how to rescale our athletic facilities, media centers, community space, and needs for each of the grade levels is going to be a real challenge. And creating a plan to modify and reduce educational offerings is a concern. So if we're taking money away from students' operations and placing it into capital projects, I'm concerned of this modification may change what kind of things that we can offer educationally to our students, and that is a concern. All right, next page. Now, why does it matter, education in the community? So we're talking to individuals that don't necessarily utilize the district for their students or grandchildren, their children or their grandchildren, and so what value is it to have a strong education in our community, and that's also facility related. It has a potential to stabilize property values. It keeps young families in our community as a desirable place. It also attracts economic development. As my experience with developers in this community, they're really looking for opportunities, and what kind of telltales are they looking for in a community for investment? They're looking for services, public safety. What services are there for seniors? What is involved with parks and support for the arts? But one of the main pillars that developers and families that are looking for is a strong educational presence that are reflected by good learning environments, and which is facility related. Again, it'll provide for a workforce for area businesses, and just focusing on developed students to be productive citizens. So it does have a community-wide impact for a successful community. The next page, I see we have some numbers in the chat, and so open to questions, but thank you for going through the presentation with me, and let's see what we can find out in some questions.
Okay, thanks, Ron. That was very informative. And we have some really great questions in the chat, so I'll do my best to capture all of them for you.
All right.
So the first question that we have here is, how much is the Jefferson property being sold for, and to whom is it being sold?
Yeah, that's a good question. We haven't even looked at the survey or made a decision on how that will be broken up. So it's not currently for sale. So there is a lot of work and determination that needs to take place for the property. And then, will it be sold as one piece of property, or will it be sold one lot at a time where revenue will be coming in as those are sold? And related to this is, what would be done with that money potentially? And I would recommend to the school board that this is deposited into a capital fund account. As you see, not all of the needs are met especially at the middle school, high school moving forward. There's only a portion of the roof that we're looking at replacing at this time. But if that property was sold, and put into a capitals project, then more roofing could be applied, and other capital needs related to facilities. I see that filling the gap at that building, which hasn't been completed with this vision.
Thanks, Ron. There's a follow-up question to that regarding the Jefferson property and wondering why it might not be auctioned as it is, since it's worth money after the demo work is finished.
The neighborhood committee, and I know the board is interested also, that managing what is placed on that property to a degree is very important to that neighborhood and to the board, and that the right sized housing, single family houses are on that property, but it may be sold as one piece of property. And I know there's utilities that exist under that property owned by the city. So we're either working around those utilities, or that they would have to be relocated for the best utilization of that space. So we will be sorting those things out with a committee. And again, that committee will only be able to make a recommendation to the board, and the board will be studying those options and recommendation moving forward.
So am I understanding correctly, there has not been a decision on what type of housing would be at that property potentially?
I think that's if there is housing on that property, that they're looking at housing that complements that neighborhood. So I don't think that we're looking at multiple unit housing. We're not looking at housing that, we're looking at what houses are in that neighborhood. We want to really support the development that supports the integrity of that neighborhood. It's important to that committee, and I know it's important to our board.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay, here's another question for you related to the amount of the bond. It says your verbiage indicates with an estimated 2.65 mil increase, MAPS could borrow 30.855 million. And whom would we be borrowing that from? Who's the guarantor of the debt? And is it possible to see a copy of that loan agreement?
Yes, that agreement would be a part of a transparency that could be requested. But it is, so we participate with the Treasury, and so we have to qualify under the state of Michigan Treasury, and then those bonds are sold on the open market, and there's a day when they're bid out, and banks and financial organizations bid on those bonds, and we accept one of those, and so it's sold, and therefore that bond payment will be made to who we choose through that process to fund this project.
Okay. Back to Jefferson. Why a neighborhood community when this is being paid for by the entire district, not only that community? Again, as mentioned the first time, the neighborhood community can purchase this property as it sits now if they want full control as to what happens to that property.
Yeah, that's a good question. They're just providing some insight and some suggestions. Again, the elected Board of Education will make that final decision on that property.
How far into the future does Kennedy meet the needs? We're already 7 or 8 years short of paying off the existing financing. So what does that look like in the future for Kennedy?
Yeah, we may have our construction management company online with us that may be able to give some insight on that. Dan or anyone on board?
Yeah, I did see them pop in.
Yeah, I'm here. So I think it was really a two-part question. I think they were asking about the longevity of the facility itself. I think, Ron, they were all also asking about how it meets the academic needs for that building. So I can address the first part.
Sure.
And Matt Slago is our architect. He's on board also. So we'll use modern systems and building materials to update the facility, the existing building, and bringing up to modern day standards with, I would say, at least another 50-year longevity beyond where we are today.
Okay, Matt, any insight on utilization of Kennedy?
Yes, as far as the tool utilization, as you remember, the enrollment projections that we did, part of that is the Department of Treasury doesn't allow you to overbuild. So we build to the capacity that the district has in student population plus a percentage. So we're building a 4-section K-5 building. So there's 4 classrooms per grade.
And that's pretty consistent with where we're at now. Some grade levels that we have at kindergarten through 5th grade are experiencing 3 classrooms full of students. So I think we're in the right spot as far as square footage and space for students with the project. And as far as meeting academic needs, I think we're doing the scope of work and the vision for the project really is elementary focused. And so it helps support the the use for the teachers for instruction, provides them the environment to be successful, and right sizing everything with elementary students in mind. We have the potential to have a great building.
Ron, I know you touched on a little bit about where central office might be relocating. I'm wondering if you can speak about the need for that space. There's a comment and question here regarding the fact that a lot of central office work could be done from home.
Yeah, and we do need some space, and so we are looking at minimizing our impact or financial impact into Madison for that space. And so we're not looking at adult expenditures for office space for central office, but we'll need some office space. So that's what we're looking for in Madison. And to be honest, I really appreciate having my office located close to students and in a building. I think there's a great value of being that close and involved in everyday operations in a school building. And we can achieve that by finding little homes temporary in each building like we do. But there is value for central office to be located within the district and operating with the teachers and the staff on a daily basis, and especially students.
Okay, next question. Can you define the phrase community space and how that's important to educating children?
Sharing community space, making it available, our auditorium, our walking track, being able to use the gymnasiums and our outdoor facilities. It's a really important part of a school district, and having our community have access to that is extremely important part of public education. So that's important. And was there another part to the question, Amber, that I'm missing? Or
just how that impacts educating children?
Yeah, and I think having that engagement or proximity with our community is really important for our students to have an understanding as when they're adults on what kind of role and participation that they can play within the school district, and understanding that these facilities are for public service also.
Okay, I'm only seeing one more question, so I'll read that in just a moment. But if anybody else has any other questions they'd like to add to the chat, now would be a great time to do that. The last question that's currently in there, I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit about this, Ron. It states that the school board must have already determined the property use for Jefferson. And so there's just a question wondering why maybe that's already been predetermined without seeing if it could be auctioned off just as it sits.
I don't know how to be more transparent or honest about this. It is currently a blank slate related to the future of Jefferson, and it may be auctioned off. But I think the school board is doing an investigation phase on what possibilities exist for that property, and having an understanding of what could happen with it, what its potential value is, and to make a determination. So there has not been a determination on what to do with that, and we're in a learning phase. Teresa.
Ron, if I could just jump in, it sounds like, and Terry, I hope I'm just going to clarify a little bit. It sounds like the question is why we're, when we say blank slate, it's because we're tearing down the building. Mm-hmm. And the intent behind that, when we came to this plan that we've been working on for however many years, we looked back at how previous school property was handled. For example, Kennedy out on 31. And if you see Kennedy now, people still associate Kennedy School with Monasteria Public Schools, even though we haven't owned it for, I don't know, 15 years. And so we didn't want to run into those sorts of issues now. The building itself, Jefferson, it doesn't have the value. And so we know that it'll have a better value if it is demolished. And so that is why when we were looking at this whole facilities plan, we determined if we're consolidating all of our elementary schools into Kennedy, the new Kennedy, that we would demolish the old building and not leave it sit vacant, open to vandals and graffiti and all other kinds of awful things that have happened with the old schools that have been remained standing. So that's why that was incorporated into the bond. As to how we plan to utilize that space, we're still figuring that out. And that's why we formed the committee, to get the input from the neighborhood, because we want to be open and transparent and get that the feedback from the city, from the community in which that building currently exists. And I hope, Terry, I hope that that clarifies it, because it kind of sounded like maybe you were wondering why you know, we already had it figured out in the bond. Yes, we know we want to tear it down, but it's just, are we going to utilize that for green space? How can it best benefit the district?
Yeah, and the money, or if there is money from sale from that property, if that's the decision, it is not part of the proposal. It is not. So the finance that would be gained potentially from the sale of that property would be part of future capital projects, not anything that exists in the current bond, just to clarify.
So any money that is in the bond proposal for Jefferson would be for the demolition of that building.
That's the
Yes.
money. And I see Terry has a question on how much to take the building down. And maybe Dan may be able to support the idea of, give us a scope of what that may cost.
Okay, I have the bond application in front of me right now. I'm looking at that number. So if you could move on to something else, and I'll get back to you quickly on that.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, but I did have a question, Ron. I'm just, the world that we're living in with COVID-19, I'm wondering how maybe this whole pandemic has impacted sort of the priorities for the bond scope.
That is a good question. And so as the main safety is the handling of the air. And what have we done or taken into consideration for air handling, and make sure we have circulation and fresh air, and that it's filtered to a high standard, creating a safe learning environment. And maybe Matt, the architect, can add some words related to the considerations that have been taking place related to that.
Yeah, the biggest thing is with the new code, it's actually requires more air changes per hour for students. So when we replace mechanical systems, they're inherently significantly better, but that also then heightens with the pandemic, and how can we add additional filtration, and those are additional considerations we'll bring to the district during the design phase.
I think the design also has some common spaces and more free spaces that allows us to spread about a little bit, but still be in a cohort. And I know some grade levels, they're larger, with larger classrooms that we're looking at than we have in some. And we also have some spillover common space that could be utilized to spread out a little bit for proximity.
Thanks, Ron. I'm going to ask one more. Oh, Dan, did I hear you jump in there?
Yeah, I want to report back. In the cost estimate in the bond application, we have $400,000 for demolition of Jefferson. And then if I could just clarify one more thing, please. You had asked Ron earlier a question that was posted that had multiple questions within about the bond sale. And one more thing to clarify on that is the person asked who is the guarantor of the debt. And that's one of the benefits of going through the Department of Treasury, is Department of Treasury is the guarantor of the debt, as opposed to Manistee Public Schools having to be that guarantor.
And that's what we get for qualifying for Treasury, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Dan. I just have one more question. It's not in the chat, but you've sort of started to speak about this. I'm just curious, can you just share a little bit about what the district has already done to maintain the buildings that we have? What investment has the district already made?
I hate to put Howard on the spot, but he holds the deepest history related to the multiple projects that have occurred through very creative financial ways. And I mentioned that the district was able to work with Honeywell Corporation on finding energy savings, and the proceeds from the savings have paid for a number of capital projects. And also using operational funds to handle a lot of capital projects as they've come up. Howard, are you ready to add any insight to that question?
I think you really covered it, Ron. I don't have anything to add. Just every year we dedicate over $100,000 up to $150,000 toward just regular repairs of the buildings. And then we've taken on a number of special projects over the year, some covered with general fund monies and others through, as you noted, the use of energy bonds. The challenge for us, and we've held Honeywell's feet to the fire, and they've been able to achieve our goals, is that we're taking on projects like roof replacement that don't really generate a significant amount of energy savings. So we're having to be very aggressive in capturing savings elsewhere to pay for those portions of the project that don't pay for themselves through energy savings. And we've also utilized, when they were available, a borrowing method was QZAB bonds, which are a zero interest bond to the district. And those have allowed us to make significant investments in repairs and capital investment, and then pay that over time with general fund monies.
Great. Thanks, Howard. Okay, let's see. After one more question came into the chat here, and it's regarding the demolition of Jefferson. So can you speak about the remediation of the site? What happens next?
Yes, as the building comes down, and if it hasn't been sold in some configuration, it would be maintained by the district. So we're looking at keeping the parking lot there for off-street parking. We're looking at keeping the playground equipment there, and maintaining the grass, and plowing the parking lot when necessary, but having that space available and to be utilized by the community until we're in a position and the board has made a decision on what to do next. But it would be groomed and put back in a way that's conducive of safety and for green space use.
Okay, great. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions, but those were really great questions.
Really great questions.
Yeah, good conversation. Ron, is there anything else you'd like to share with the group before we wrap up?
No, I encourage you. There's a lot of information related to history of bonds and other details of information related to this proposal on our website. And again, that's maps, www.maps2020.org. And it's easily navigate. You get to the spot related to this, and I encourage you to go look. And if you have any additional questions, just give my office a call. You can find my number on that website. My email address is there, and send me a question. And if I don't have the answer, I will find it for you and provide that. We also have a question and answer portion on the website. So I know a lot of the questions that popped up today will be captured and added to that. So we're constantly adding to our question and answer on the website. So make sure you find your way through that and see what other questions people have come up with that we've answered. And you might find that you have more questions from what you discover. So that's it. Again, appreciate you joining us tonight and providing some good questions. Any other insight? Teresa, thank you for being here. I know Board President Jim Thompson has joined us, and any other insight to provide? Hi, Teresa.
Hi, Ron. I did a couple people have been messaging me through this and just had some questions, and one was just on related to after, if the bond passes, then how soon bids would be sent out for, and then how soon everything would get demoed, and if we have like a timeline of how that would occur.
Yeah, generally, probably I'm getting information that next March, all the drawings and permits would be achieved. So we're looking at March 2022 to have our go-ahead paperwork, and hoping that we have some occupiable classrooms August of 2023, and all projects completed in August 2024. So, a little bit of moving around that will take time. When we capture the savings of utilizing a renovation that is occupied with students, we need a little bit extra time to, work around students and make sure that everyone's safe and the project gets complete in a timely way. So we're looking really at August 2024 as completed. But there are, and then once that Kennedy is occupiable, then the use of Jefferson wouldn't be necessary. And then when the students are moved, we can get after that project. Taking down the 1927 building, there's no one in there. That may be a project that we'd see sooner than later. And also the gymnasium work at the high school would be a project that wouldn't require any displacement of students. So I can see some of this work getting ahead of others, but it's a big scope of work. And but I think we can get this wrapped up in August of 2024. I hope that helps with an idea. Obviously, as we get closer and our permits and everything is put together, we'll have a much tighter timeline and that we can provide the community.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining tonight, for asking great questions, and for being invested in this work. It's much appreciated. So have a wonderful evening. Ron, do we have the date of the next opportunity for community forum? April, I know, I can't recall.
Yeah.
It's the 20th.
April 20th. Thank you.
April 20th. Yeah, and the uniqueness of that is we'll have that in person at Kennedy Elementary, and give an opportunity to be face to face, which is important, but also to take a look at the building and have an understanding of what's there and what's going on in that building today.
Great. So hopefully we'll see many of you on that evening as well.
Tell your friends.
All right. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you, Amber.